Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty. I'm here with my co-host Daniel Quinn, and that's it today. Unfortunately, Chris is still out with some illness, so he won't be able to make it with us today. But we wanted to make sure that we finished up our episode in the Land of a Thousand Frauds because it's important that we knock that out for you guys as soon as possible. So on today's episode, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We had a listener prompt from Dylan who sent us in an interesting prompt that we knocked out last episode of the series anyway. And we're going to finish that up on today's episode. And what that means is that last episode we had a twist, which was the stakes get even higher in our land of social media gods and goddesses. So I guess we're just going to go from there. Yeah, so
I forgot that this was called Land of a Thousand Frauds, and it makes me happy, that title.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we got the prompt, I already knew what the title of the name was, or the series was, so it was one of those. All right, Daniel, so glad to have you here. So sad that Chris can't make it, but he did send in some notes that we can, because he still wanted to contribute. He still had some interesting ideas that he wanted to throw in there. And we're going to be reading those. Unfortunately, we're going to be missing his wit and charm and
his buttery voice.
He does. Yeah, he does have buttery voice occasionally. I'm not going to complain about that. That's true. Oh, man. Okay. So yeah, let's get on with the episode. And I wanted to start us off because I was thinking about the Land of a Thousand Frauds, where meme lords rise and where we have social media influencers as gods, essentially, right? And the way I was trying to think, how can you really raise the stakes on gods? How can you raise the stakes on playing around with people's souls? And I thought back to one of the semi-antagonists that we kind of created last episode, and that was going to be the Illuminati. And I was like, I'm a big fan of conspiratorial thought, and I'm a big fan of conspiracies as like a cultural aspect. Like I'm really fascinated in examining them from a cultural side and like a historical folklore side. I don't believe in conspiracies except for the ones that are real. But what I wanted to do is take the conspiratorial thought of the Illuminati terraforming Earth in order to make it more habitable for lizard people and turn that into a flat out alien invasion. Because how else am I going to make gods and goddesses ascend except to defend themselves from aliens? And that's basically what I wanted to go with. Plus, there's this kind of idea, there's this kind of theme that we've kind of been messing around with, where this is an age of leisure, of decadence to a certain extent with these social media influencer gods. And that's the direction that I really wanted to take it in. So, Daniel, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think in terms of raising the stakes, that would probably be a logical conclusion, and logical next step is aliens. I just had a thought now that you because you said terraforming, right? And I wonder, okay, what if it's instead of terraforming the world, what if it's terraforming the mind? Like the aliens are prepping our minds for colonization. They don't need our planet, they need our minds.
Okay, that sounds incredibly cool, and we should definitely talk a little bit more about that. Yeah. So okay, so it's the Illuminati who are kind of control. In what sense do we need to be mind formed here? Like, in what sense does that need to be the case?
I mean, I'm thinking back to the X-Files, which is like my favorite sci-fi series of all time, which is, for me, it's a great romance, one of the enduring romances of the modern cinema. But what I'm thinking of the X-Files is when the Smoking Man made an alliance with the aliens, and they were really trying to save the Earth or put off the invasion. But they had to do a lot of dark things in order to accomplish that. So I wonder if like the Illuminati have made an alliance with these aliens and they're assisting with the colonization of people's minds. So I'm not really answering your question yet, but I wonder if like they were doing that with the intention of possibly subverting the aliens in the end, but it's gone too far. They're here, and it's too much trouble now. Kind of like what happened in X-Files. But as far as like colonization of the mind goes, I feel like either maybe I don't know, maybe their physiology requires them to. I mean, it could go one of two directions. Either they need our minds to inhabit our bodies, which is the more literal direction,
Mhm.
or maybe like in order to create an ideal society for themselves, they have to have totally subservient slaves. So in a sense that like not only are they capitulating to their will, but they're like totally incorporated into the alien culture, and they can use the whole meme culture to start that shift.
So it's a subtle manipulation of the people who are looked upon on this world as gods, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe we can even kind of push that into what's trending is because of the Illuminati's push, and maybe even those who ascend is because of this subtle like, hey, you do this for us, we'll make sure that you get famous, and with without that person really knowing what they're actually doing,
that's what the
it's kind
system
of.
is for. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like that ties in perfectly with what we were kind of talking about the last time, where there is a system in place where there's the power and then there's the power behind the power, and that's the Illuminati that we're talking about here.
And the aliens have been plotting this forever. Like, because remember there was the old group before the modern kind of controllers of the system, like religions, right? So that means that these religions too, the quote unquote Illuminati of that time, were preparing for the invasion even then.
We could even go so far as so in the last episode I had talked about something that had uh there was an event, I think we were still pretty vague on it, that took the faith out of the people of the old gods. There was
Yeah.
this original system that was in place, and then something happened. We can now just make it so the Illuminati is 100% behind that. The alien
Hmm.
invasion are the ones who essentially exposed the previous religious system as false or incomplete.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I also was talking about some members who used to be meme lords who unplug themselves and are now against the system, and they're like from all stripes of the political spectrum, and they're kind of like forced to work together. So I think the joke was like
Mm-hmm.
you'd have like a Trump insurrectionist alongside like a liberal TV host, and they've got to work together to undermine this larger conspiracy. So I'm wondering now, like, okay, they probably learn about the truth, like the secrets of the alien stuff. And obviously, no one's going to believe them because it's so outlandish. And so now you
I,
have these guys being sort of the heroes, unlikely heroes together working on this.
I just realized this is kind of like XCOM. This is like a
Yes, it is.
weird. This is like a weird XCOM derivative that we're going off of
A
here.
goofy,
And
more goofy XCOM.
I see. In my mind, I don't see it necessarily as that goofy, but this totally works. I
It
think
depends
maybe
on
we
if,
can.
if it's season 10 X Files or if it's like season 9 and earlier,
No
whether it's
X,
goofy or
no
not.
XCOM, Daniel, not X Files.
Oh no, I agree, but I'm just saying like season 10
Oh.
X Files was horrifyingly bad and goofy, but 9 and earlier were dramatic and cool. So it's like which
Well, okay.
flavor?
I'm going to push back on you because there were definitely some fun, goofy episodes
Oh
from
yeah,
1 to 9. I'm
of
just throwing
course.
that out
Monster
there,
of the
okay?
week and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
Not even just the monster of the week, but there were just some like real dumb, goofy ones. Also, uh, I can't remember if it was the offshoot, the lone gunman.
Oh, I
Uh,
love that show. It was so bad.
what was the episode where they go into the virtual reality machine and they're all dressed in leather and they have guns? Do you
They were.
remember that?
I vaguely remember that show, and I only watched
It
it
was
because it was part of the franchise.
it
But it
was
was great.
fucking
I
terrible.
love
It
that
was
show.
terrible and I
It's
loved it.
great. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, you have like amazing episodes. Like that episode where Mulder and Scully are like possessed by ghosts in a murder suicide pact. Do you remember that episode? Because that was a good one too. I enjoyed that
Was
one.
that in the regular series or
Yes.
in the Lone
Yeah, that was
Gunman?
a regular
I
series
mean,
one. Yeah.
I've seen the X Files probably through 3 or 4 times, but they're still a blur to me. You know?
Gotcha. Anyway, let's get back on topic here. So we've got an alien invasion. We've got like a weird punk rock XCOM thing going on with a ragtag group of exiled political well, anti-system folks, I
Yeah.
suppose, is what we want to go with. So where do we want to go from here? Do we want to just dive right into factions? Is that where we want to go?
One other thing I thought of when you mentioned the alien invasion too is the show V. That I think you mentioned before when we talked about the show V in general, that it springs from conspiracy theories unto itself.
Yes, V is an excellent miniseries from the 70s or 80s, I believe, and then they remade it like in the 2000s or 2010s.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember. Yeah.
With
Um,
was it the girl from Serenity? Is she the alien? Or am I
I
mistaken?
only watched the 70s version. I never watched the remake.
Really?
Yes.
I don't even know what that one's like. I've only seen the miniseries.
Uh, well, no, they're both miniseries. So,
Oh, I mean, never seen the 70s one.
oh man, let me tell you, the makeup is actually surprisingly good for a miniseries. Let me tell you that. But yeah. Anyway, so I love the idea of bringing V into it because I think it's absolutely 100% where we're going. Actually, that could be. I mean, we could basically just do a remake of V in this case, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
eventually the Illuminati decide to. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, the Illuminati decide to take one of these shape shifting lizard people and turn them into a god, and it's like the
Mm-hmm.
first time that they do it. And what does that look like? And what happens when that happens? Because that I feel like that's an interesting twist that we can really take on this type of story.
You mean they take one of the meme lords and turn them into their shapeshifters, or they take the shapeshifter and put them down and turn them into a meme lord?
There you go. That
Oh,
the
okay.
second one, yeah.
So to
And
infiltrate the society.
yeah, not even because they control the society at large, right? They control the
Right.
system. This is so the people of the planet will then start to worship one of the aliens as a god.
Oh,
And so
oh,
there's
that's
some kind of
brilliant.
there's something different there where we've only seen these humans kind of ascend to godhood. This is the first time that a lizard person is going to be ascending to godhood. So there's going to be something that's got to be some kind of a cataclysmic or a very important event that happens, right?
I've got an instance of that for you right out the gate.
Go for it.
In the real world. So I just learned about, and this is because I'm 48 years old. I just learned about this I don't know, the VTuber, who ones that are on Twitch, the streamer types. There's one named I forget
Daniel,
her
you truly are 55 years old.
I forget her actual name, but so apparently her alias is Code Miko, and she's this person who wears a full body motion tracking suit, and she only appears in her streams as this totally animated 3D avatar. And she control, but she's this whoever this developer is behind it, the woman who's in charge, who actually wears the suit and programs it. Like she knows what she's doing because she's turned her whole apartment into a virtual space, and she interviews people as this virtual character. And so
You
she
know
can,
that VTubers are remarkably popular, right?
yeah, but this one, she's wearing like a $30,000 suit. Like she's a
Ah,
legit programmer, and she calls herself a technician. So I wonder if, like, okay, this makes me think of your inserted lizard person. Like, what if you have someone like that who is this popular meme lord who obviously serves a greater purpose, right? But they're not just the meme lord, and they're not actually using a holographic suit. They're actually a shape shifting lizard person. You know?
oh, so they're using like, look at this technology that I have,
Mm-hmm.
except that they can actually just shapeshift into like
Yep.
anime characters in real life.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's actually really fucking
And
interesting.
nobody, people in the chat, like, no, she's a lizard person. Don't follow her for stream. And they're like, well, you're insane. And they just silence those people.
Yeah, and oh man, that's a perfect cover for it as well because it's
Yeah.
like, look at these great, like, dude, it's just a tech suit. Like, come
I know, it's
on,
just
like,
a
what are you
fucking
talking
suit. What's your
about?
problem? And
Yeah,
she's
just
actually
look
on
at.
the spaceship. That's why it's a holographic room, you know?
Oh my god, that's so. I fucking love that. Actually, like,
It's
holy shit.
ridiculous. Code Miko is a lizard
Uh,
person. Said
we
it here
can
first on Worldbuild with us.
we can totally bring in VTubers now. I love
Yes.
this. I have
Yes.
You have no idea how much I love this. This is uh, everything about the meme lords is now redeemed because we have VTubers. That's even better.
Lizard people.
Well, lizard people I can take or leave. That's fine. That's either here or there. Oh man. Okay, so let's uh I was gonna give a different faction, but I'm just gonna steal VTubers from you.
Do it.
So that is now gonna be my faction that I want to talk about because god damn it, that's actually a really smart idea. What is your faction, by the way?
So mine, I mean, it could tie into what you're talking about. Mine was all I wrote down was rogue memes have taken on a life of their own and want physical embodiment. But this kind of sounds like what that is. So I feel like I could just tag team and help you out.
Well, actually, I kind of have a different idea about that one.
Oh,
These are
okay.
like this is almost like you're it's not like the system that we have now where people through their social media influence gain power.
Mhm.
This is more the opposite where this vague concept or thought or mimetic thought gains power and sentience.
Oh, on
It's
its own. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's more akin to like a rogue AI or even how we might perceive like old gods in a way.
Right. Okay. So I can
That
hold on to that while you cover
yeah,
the.
no,
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot. I like that because we can have both, right? Like, why not have both? This,
Yeah. Mhm.
in my mind, this mimetic thought that's being praised and looked at as a god is the only pure way that humanity can be saved. We
Right. So
have
I was thinking they're the weapon. They're the weapons that the unplugged people ultimately have to use to fight
yes,
your lizard aliens.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And now, upon further inspection, we have VTubers versus mimetic thought, which is dumb, but also really interesting. I'm kind of
VTuber
into
lizard
this.
aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to make sure it's VTubers front and center. VTubers backed by lizard aliens.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
there. Okay. So, but let's kind of dig into that idea a little bit more. What did you have? What other ideas did you have surrounding this kind of, this mimetic or this mimetic thought that's trying to gain a physical embodiment? What did you have in mind?
My thinking goes back to kind of classic cyberpunk like Neuromancer, where you had like Wintermute, and what
Yeah.
was its counterpart called? Wintermute and you had the other
Wasn't it
counterpart.
cyber? Wasn't it
Neuromancer, yeah,
Neuromancer?
Neuromancer and Wintermute,
Yeah,
where
I was
they're
like,
like,
I'm like, it's named after it's in the title, man.
yes, it's the fucking title. So like when you had those two AIs who they function with a kind of a mysterious intent, and really we knew they just wanted to get off the Earth and explore the universe is really what they wanted at the end. But I can imagine that these memes have, given that they've taken on a life of their own, literally. I don't know whether they're interested in helping humans directly or saving the world, but maybe because they need they need those that created them to continue in order for them themselves to progress and to be able to transcend the world. Perhaps
Mhm.
that's why they're in alliance with humanity in a sense. And these aliens, like they just want to co-opt that. So that would be a reason for them to work together. But I imagine they have an intention of their own. Like they're not necessarily beholden to humanity.
That actually makes it. Again, I'm thinking of Neuromancer and specifically the ending where Wintermute, or sorry, Neuromancer and Wintermute finally merge and they become
Yeah,
this ascended being, and then nothing happens. Like that's
yeah. They just
also
leave.
spoilers for like a 40-year-old book at this point. I apologize, but yeah, like they ascend and they kind of just are,
Mhm.
and I'm curious as to how many times this has already happened already, or maybe this kind of rogue faction, this anti-system faction, is looking for one that will actually just stick around and actually help humanity in some way.
Yeah, maybe like the uplift that could happen in this instance. Perhaps they bring a few people with them, and then that helps them fight
Ah,
the aliens that are
yeah.
coming.
So we're gonna go shift into a different sci-fi book here and talk about Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, where eventually humanity is shepherded into the next life form, which is like pure energy, but humans still exist, right? So there's this one human who's like, all right, I'll go with you guys and you can kind of teach me, some things that no other human is ever going to see, because
Right.
what other point is there? So I like that idea where you have a little bit of that in someone who ascends with that that mimetic thought and then is able to come back in some way with knowledge. But at that point, I would imagine that that person is like utterly changed
It's like a
in a
Gandalf
deep.
the White.
Yeah, kind of. I was actually thinking more like Gozer from the
Oh
Ghostbusters,
yeah,
or
yeah.
like that's kind of where my brain went, you
They're
know?
kind of like alien unto themselves, but like they
Yeah,
have a fragment of that humanity, and so that's why they want to fight to
exactly,
for help
exactly.
humanity free themselves.
And then we could actually do Ghostbusters Gozer all over because you're choosing the form of your destroyer and they're fucking shape-shifting
Yes.
lizard
And
people.
then you end up with like crazy brands that are manifested. Or it's like okay, so it's Ghostbusters plus like Megazords because
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah.
you see where we're
Now we
going.
can do mascot. Are the okay?
Yes.
The things that are ascending are brands and mascots. They're not
Yes.
people. Oh my
Like
god.
fucking Mickey Mouse takes on a true form and
Yes. Like a physical form or like
yeah,
a
yeah.
physical embodiment. Oh my god, that totally works.
To fight the lizard VTubers.
This is the dumbest thing we've ever made, Daniel, and
It's
I love
fantastic.
it.
It's so
Oh
hideous
my
and
god,
beautiful.
it's so great. Oh, fuck,
Oh my
man.
god, it's so
I'm
insane.
so sad that Chris had to miss this one
I
too.
know.
This is like a really good episode.
We
Okay.
could introduce the post-it notes. I know we had a post-it note for Adrenochrome, which I
Yeah.
still don't fully understand.
Okay, that's we're gonna get into that later. So I will in fact read Chris's note that he sent to us for his faction, which is the Department of Petaphysics is a multinational organization that is researching the development for building and inflicting upon the world. Uh, these are Chris's notes. I'm just going to read them as they came.
Is there an end
So
to that sentence?
that that's a great question, Daniel. We're not here to critique Chris's writing, though. Okay, that's for the viewers to do. So they are looking at the world that's imposed above theirs beyond the metaphysical. In the way that metaphysics is detached from our reality, petaphysics is detached from theirs. In the reference of D&D, it would be as if your character is interacting with their god is metaphysical, and then somehow your character is trying to influence yourself is then petaphysical.
Oh, I
They
see.
know, yeah, they know that their world is not real. They know that none of this matters but to try none of this matters but try to influence us. Okay.
So it's he's saying if we were talking about the reference of RPGs, it's like narratively reflexive. So like I create a character who has some intention, and then somehow in the playing of that character, it influences me, the creator of the character.
So I think this is like so we have we have humanity, we have gods, and then we have a step even above that, which is like to understand that this is all a game, or this is to understand that this is all a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding of Chris's notes here.
Or at least that we're crafting this fiction, because that's what the next step would be. Like there is
Right.
someone crafting the whole situation.
So maybe maybe that's what we can do is that the people who ascend with those brands who ascend or gain kind of an avatar
Mm-hmm.
state is they understand that they're actually just characters in a podcast that we're making up.
And so they can reprogram the world itself by changing the fiction.
Right. So for example, if this were to get like super meta, then it would be something along the lines of like, okay, I'm now receiving word from this brand. We need to change the
Yes.
like that's the level
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like meta and petaphysical shit that we're getting into.
We'd have a call-in guest who is Mickey Mouse, who has ascended, who then
Right,
tells
right.
us like we have to have this in the story,
Right. And by the way, if we're completely misrepresenting your thoughts, Chris, then maybe you shouldn't have gotten sick in the fucking first place. All right. Maybe you should have thought about that first. Anyway. All right. I actually really like that idea. It's kind everything's kind of coming together. Everything's kind of like like there's some cohesion happening finally. And I really love that. Let's get rolling on to our events then. Daniel, what did you have for your event?
This one I think will slot in pretty easily, but I could definitely use your help. So I had this notion of like a dark day. So I was thinking to like all the times on the internet where some protest will happen, and they'll decide like we're gonna black out this section of the internet by like not accessing something, or by literally creating black screens in order to reduce energy consumption, various like coordinated efforts. So I'm thinking like a dark day event that happens in this setting where and I don't know which faction would be behind it. Basically they make everything dark on the web so memes can't function. That way they can accomplish something behind the scenes really quickly during that one day.
So it's basically it's a blackout,
Yeah.
right? So it's as if the internet, all of the internet, was to go down simultaneously.
Yeah, and so now this group, whoever it is, they got limited time to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish. And with the introduction of aliens, I think that would be pretty neat.
Right. So, but who's behind it? Is it the aliens or is it the resistance? Let's start there.
I feel like the natural inclination is to say the resistance, right? I think aliens could also be interesting, but they already have a lot of power. Like, and also if they turn off the internet for themselves, like that's something they need.
And I also imagine that this event will lead to some backlash of, oh, we should disconnect more.
Yes.
You know, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's a combination of like, okay, maybe it's two things. So the on the ground buddy cop faction of your barbarian Trump insurrectionists and Stephen Colbert, they have to run and find they got to go find the cabin in the woods of the meme lords who are
that's a
rehab.
Real sentence that you actually just said that came out of your mouth. It makes sense within the context of
right?
this.
So you got Stephen Colbert and the barbarian from the Trump insurrection. They rush to the cabin in the woods.
Daniel, I have to stop you and remind you that it is a shaman, not a barbarian.
Yes, the shaman.
Stop giving barbarians a bad name, okay?
QAnon shaman and Stephen Colbert. They get together. They rush to cabin in the woods where the meme lords in rehab are, right? And during the blackout that they've caused, or whoever has caused, and they're going to have them help them get together to make a plan to assault the aliens at some critical juncture.
You know, I just realized that we also can use the cabin as we can use that as a way to indoctrinate the people who are going there into the alien invasion, right?
So, oh man. So it's also a trap.
Yes, I can imagine that. And it's obviously not everyone, but every now and again, they'll probably pick somebody up and be like, all right, you're working for us now. And then like completely, and either kidnap and have them have a shapeshifter take their place, or just like indoctrinate them in some kind of way. You know what I mean? Like you can go either way with it. But I think that's a great opportunity. So why do they have to black out the internet in order to do this mission?
So maybe because obviously I imagine there's a lot of surveillance that the aliens use because they have the internet. Like they have all kinds of ways to find out what you're up to, and they're clearly monitoring the VTubers, the VTuber plants, all the meme stuff that's going on. So maybe part of it is like, they need to be careful when they go to the cabin in the woods, because like you're saying, there are plants there that are trying to indoctrinate those meme lords on rehab. But B, they need to get certain meme lords out because those guys know the ins and outs of the system, and perhaps they will be able to help them get access to the AIs that we just created, who can then help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is basically like a tactical raid.
Yes.
Where they go in, they know who they've got to pick up, and then they're out, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so this is, in what way is this event significant? Or is this the genesis of the resistance?
Maybe it's the genesis. Maybe it's they're heisting these meme lords, allows them to then get a guy who can help get the AI out or active.
Yep. That's kind of what I was thinking, and I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Fantastic.
Meme day.
Yeah, meme liberation day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't there's got to be some phrase that people use first in the meme world of something ridiculous, like a D-Day of some sort?
What do you mean?
Like you know how like the GameStop craze thing has its own phrases now. Are there any phrases surrounding like a D-Day invasion that's internet culture phrase?
I'm sure that there is one that exists, but let's not
let's not allow it.
Let's not. let's not manifest that into the
Yes.
world as it is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So
What's your thingy?
see, my event, I kind of tied all of mine into the invasion. That was supposed to be the event.
Mhm.
And we really tied it all together and like expounded upon it in better ways than I ever could. Um, so you know what? Let's say fuck it and skip my event because we've already talked a lot about that. And then what we can do is we can roll into some scenario creation. All
Okay.
right. But before we get going with that, I did want to talk about the idea of how easy this world would be to translate into a game,
Oh
right?
yeah.
There is a sense of, as a regular person, there's a sense of paranoia that you could play up where it's almost in a sense like you're on an intoxicant all the time in this type of world, and there's a veil that you have to see beyond. That's one of the situations that I could easily see running a game where your regular people who are finally starting to see the reality of the world as it is. You know, if we wanted to go back and really play into, you know, the conspiratorial thought that I had started with, I think that this is a perfect entryway into examining something like that.
Yeah.
But we're not here for that, Daniel. We're here to we're here to
We
figure
can
out. Yes,
just do it through the dice.
I was going to say, but now
Yeah.
it's time to see what the dice tell us. And now it's time to see what kind of scenarios we're going to get with the dice. All right, so here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be rolling some dice to figure out what kind of genre this scenario is going to be in. And then we're going to create a plot hook based around that, based on a subject and a theme. So let's go ahead. The genre in this world is going to be a fantasy genre, which I'm already in love with. And then the subject is going to be an historical figure. Okay. And then the theme for all of this is going to be tragedy. So now we're going to be creating a fantasy facing plot hook with the theme of tragedy featuring a prominent historical figure. So
Oh
let's
man.
let's go ahead and figure that out.
I can give you one part of it, I think. Um,
Sure.
so I'm thinking back to I never played this MMORPG. I forget the name of it. It wasn't EverQuest. It was some other. It might have been EverQuest. It was one where the server got shut down and they had this really big celebration at the end of it because it'd been open for so many years. And someone wrote an essay about that and like how it all ended. And people were there at the end of that server, kind of partying. So I'm wondering if maybe the fantasy aspect could be a fantasy game that's actually played in this setting.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we have by the way, were you talking about Asheron's Call by any
Yes,
chance?
that is the
Yeah.
one. You knew
All
it.
right. Thought so. Yeah. Anyway, so we've got a fantasy, we've got an historical figure, and it's tragic. So
Mhm.
let's think about this idea that maybe we've got a game designer of a fantasy MMO. In
Oh
this
yeah,
world,
yeah.
that'd actually be a big thing. He'd basically
Hmm.
be like Elon Musk plus, right?
Yes, yes.
Or if we wanted to evoke the horrible Ready Player One,
A hideous book, right?
yeah, whatever that guy, he could be that guy,
I
right?
have no
That's,
sympathy if any of you like the book because it is objectively terrible. But you may continue.
you know what? I will vaguely defend that book as not being trash. It is
How dare you?
it is not bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's certainly not terrible.
It's
Okay.
trash. It's trash.
No. If we were talking about Ready Player Two,
Oh,
that's an entire
that's mega trash.
yeah. See,
We're agreed there. There's different dimensions of trash.
exactly, and that's
Yeah,
where I wanted to draw the line is
totally.
because there's like the bottom of the barrel, and then there's
Yeah.
the strata of the earth under which the barrel sits.
That was an author
You
saying, you know
know?
what? They're gonna publish this and pay me no matter what the fuck I write. So I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Yeah, you're not even wrong. So let's turn that. Okay, so let's turn the closing down of this fantasy MMO server into a tragedy by featuring this important historical figure. How are we going to do that?
So this designer, maybe he took his design a step too far. Like, he got so connected to the world he created, he physically lives in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Alternatively,
yeah.
he could be the one who introduced the VTubers to the world.
Oh man.
So,
Because of his ability to locate himself into the game, that technology
yeah.
was co-opted.
And then maybe the tragedy lies within he's made this brilliant thing only to have it co-opted by people, and so the tragedy is the downfall of his empire by the alien lizard people.
Yes.
Again, these are all words that are coming
I
out of my
just
mouth that I've
I
been
just
making up.
love when you're summarizing this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. But let's kind of go with that. He creates this thing that's brilliant and
Yep.
beautiful, and there's this event surrounding it, and then
Uh-huh.
it's all taken away because it's misappropriated for this horrible technology
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
What's the game though? What's the plot within the game that we can kind of create there?
If you were a what do they call? What's the people after millennials?
Gen
What are
Z?
they, yeah, there's a word for Z. Zoomers. Zoomers. Is that
Zoomer.
it?
Yeah.
If you're a Zoomer, and you're gonna have to answer because I'm from like Generation A, so
That's
if you're
no. You're not a Babylonian, Daniel.
I'm a Babylonian, so if you're a Zoomer and you're playing a game like and it's an epic adventure, like what do you want out of it as a Zoomer? Like, are you looking for the possibility of a pension that doesn't exist anymore, or perhaps maybe you'd like to buy a house that just can't happen because our market's so fucked? Maybe you're looking for an economy that isn't crashing every 15
Mm,
minutes.
that's actually not a bad idea. And then the game aspect of it, like the plot hook aspect of it, is you're all playing characters within this MMO,
Uh huh.
and maybe they're maybe you're all guild mates
Yeah.
with the creator, and you're supposed to uncover the conspiracy behind his downfall.
Oh, so like the post after this event. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
that
maybe the
actually
world that they played in the fantasy world they played in prior to that was kind of utopian. Like maybe it was like what's the farming game that everybody loves?
there's many. You're talking about Stardew
Animal
Valley.
Animal something.
Your Animal Crossing is not a farming game,
Oh,
but
well, that
I
everyone
know
loves
what
that
you're
one because
talking about. Yes,
it's kind of tranquil, right? So maybe that their world
yeah,
was like that. It was a very simple. Everything's great here, and then this event happens, like you're saying.
yeah. Well, actually, I like the idea that like the historical figure, this Elon Musk figure, right?
Mm.
He creates this technology. It's a great success, and then he goes missing, and something happens to him, and there's a tragic downfall, and the server shuts down, and so now it's the job of the guild mates to figure out what
Yeah.
happened to him. That's
Oh, I
that's
love
the kind of
that. I
scenario
would
that I'm
totally
thinking of.
be into that, like, as a game
Yeah.
too, like
Oh,
or even
absolutely.
as a story would be fun because it's all the perspectives of the guildmates and, like, maybe there's, like,
Yeah.
a principal character and it's the investigating the conspiracy.
Not only that, but there's also the breaking of or the separation between fiction and reality that MMOs tend to have,
Right.
where, oh, you're meeting your guildmates for the first time in real life, and wow, they're not what you expected, that type of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that we're ready to move on to our next plot hook scenario. So let's see what the dice say this time, Daniel. So the genre that we're working with is going to be romance, of course. And then the subject is going to be a place. And the theme that we're working with this romantic place is going to be metamorphosis. So my brain immediately is on fire with what we're kind of talking about here. I
So
have this,
romance and metamorphosis. Go ahead.
yeah, I kind of have this idea where, because not everything, let's not make everything about this world miserable and terrible and alien and conspiratorial, right? I mean, part of it, obviously, that's kind of the main hook. But let's talk about this idea that there is a place where people can go to and they can fall in love. And how does that work? And how does it fit into this idea of metamorphosis? Is it a matter of is it a matter of becoming your avatar? Is it a matter of like physically or emotionally or spiritually transforming yourself.
I'm reminded when you say that of the dark Black Mirror episode, where the one romance episode that was actually like the one positive Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
San Junipero is what you're thinking of.
yes, and there were some transformations in that too, right?
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you again, that's when we're going between the physical state and
Uh-huh.
the computer state or the electronic state.
Yeah, I'm getting those vibes, is what I mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we can, well, why don't we do that? I mean, now that we've introduced this kind of AI driven or like this kind of you can change what you look like type thing, is there a place where you can go and get something installed where you can walk around as a VTuber in real life?
Yeah, I think that would be because that's part of the technology too that the designer invented.
Absolutely. So let's figure out how we can work that into a romance plot or how we can kind of make it romantic in some way.
Do you know you want to we want a romance? We don't necessarily need a romance that's tragic because we just did the tragic thing, so we want one
Right. No,
that's
the theme
positive.
here is
Yeah,
metamorphosis. The theme is
metamorphosis.
metamorphosis.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on.
Uh-huh.
What if, because the easy out is to think about this place that outfits people with the VTuber technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
The easy thing to do is to think about someone who falls in love when they've transformed or when they've able
Right.
to create who they are. Why don't we focus instead on the designers, the people who are actually outfitting the people with the
Oh,
technology? I think focusing on a romantic aspect between the designers might actually be more interesting overall.
and then maybe they're also laboring in conditions that are not pleasant. You know, like
Mhm.
for like some big corp that does the work here, and it's very it's drudgery. So the relationships between the designers would be interesting because they're the only life of the place.
Yes. Also, I like the idea that there is a veneer of a boutique to it.
Mm-hmm.
So on the facade, there is like, oh yeah, like we're high end, we're outfitting you with the best technology. But then
Yeah.
once they get in the back, it's like we're breaking down, we're really, like
Yeah.
struggling here,
They're
that
working
type of
really,
thing.
they believe in it, but they're also like beholden to whatever corporate apparatus is part of the system that finances the whole situation.
Yeah, and maybe okay. Here we
Mm-hmm.
go. Here's where we might be able to get into it. Maybe they start to realize that there's a better way, and maybe they're starting to realize that what they're doing is potentially harmful,
Mm-hmm.
and or maybe they just didn't cover the conspiracy entirely and
Yeah.
recognize that, oh, we're turning people into lizard, or we're allowing these lizard people to exist.
They're realizing the conspiracy over time.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
so the romantic aspect is, of course, these two people decide to run away together and
Yeah.
try and expose the conspiracy. That's where the kind of game starts.
Is that part of the disappearance of the designer?
I don't think it needs to be.
No. Okay. It's just two.
But
These are a couple who they're gonna try and do their best, and they leave the company, but they still have access keys to the game, and so they're gonna try to do their best. But it's about them escaping together, like Mulder and Scully, basically
right.
the greatest romance ever written.
I thought it was Mulder and the Greys. That's what the
Mulder and the Great.
yeah.
He does care about them deeply.
Oh, yeah, more than Scully in the early seasons. That's for sure.
That's true. Yep.
Oh man. All right. So
I can see that. That's like
but
my favorite kind of romance.
yeah, one where it's like they are brought together through circumstance and also
Mhm.
through
Exterior
like,
pressure,
yeah, absolutely, for sure. How do we turn it into a hook though? Like,
Oh,
is it
okay.
a matter of each of the people are kind of, well, you can't force a romance though. That's the thing.
No.
But maybe
Um.
have
Okay, maybe. Okay, so I'm thinking like not a monster. Well, like a Monster Hearts or any of the indie RPGs what focus on narrative first, like play, right? So maybe
mhm,
the setup is kind of like it's like a dorm of these designers, and so there's lots of if it was an RPG, like there's a lots of play. All the players, they have not a sorority or fraternity, but like they're in that kind of like dormish setup where there's the opportunity for a lot of relationships to develop because they have to work so intensely together in this small space.
I like
So
that.
maybe the story is about like their emotional states dealing with the exterior pressure of the company and their fans who play the game, and then
Absolutely.
it starts to bleed in the conspiracy. So now the stakes get risen, and you have the relationships intensify.
And then of course, like there's basically three outcomes. One is where you run away together and your love kind of allows you to escape,
Yeah.
and the others are less good than that. That
Well, it's like, okay, can your love endure under the fist of the company, or
yeah,
like, can you?
some people are into that, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
so
here to
those kind of
judge.
things. There you go.
You
That's like Buffy,
completely,
but with VR RPG stuff.
yeah. Okay, all right, cool. I feel like that's it. I feel like
Yeah,
that's a good place to stop.
I can see that.
Uh, so Dylan, thank you for your patience as we wrapped up the Land of a Thousand Frauds, and thank everyone for their patience for dealing with us as we kind of deal with some scheduling issues. Starting next week, it's going to be a lot more consistent again. Don't worry about that. And remember that if you want to send in your own world and have us build it with you, you can email us at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com. Or if you prefer, you can always go ahead and shoot us a DM over at Let's Worldbuild on Twitter.com. And if you want to just come hang out with us hang out in our Discord, we're there pretty much all the time. You can do so by hanging out on our Discord with a link in the description. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always send us money through Patreon and take advantage of all those sweet, sweet patron offers. Link for the Patreon also in the description. And that'll do it for this week's World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together.